Hi, so how did I get into note investing? Well, my background is in manufacturing sales. Okay, I started note brokering around 1996. It was about 28 years ago. I was an outside sales and marketing guy knocking on doors and calling on businesses. So I was looking for something better, and then I saw an infomercial about flipping real estate properties that piqued my interest. I didn't have any real money of my own to invest, but it seemed there was a way to accomplish this using other people's money. I ordered the course they were offering and read through it and became more interested. I was thinking more long term, like trying to develop a plan to eventually own several properties and become a landlord. I took some classes on real estate investing and landlording at a local college, and the instructors were really down to earth, real people, bona fide people, actual investors, not seminar gurus. Okay, and they turned me onto a local networking group. A group is called Chicago Creative Investors Association. Okay, and they held meetings and events every Sunday night, and I attended some of those to see what was going on. And this was kind of a sacrifice for me, not wanting to miss any Bears games at the time, and sometimes I had to leave the game early, but I knew it was important for me to get out there. So I was able to network with some interesting people at these events who were successful real estate investors themselves, and I got introduced to the concept of notes. And I learned that notes and mortgages could be bought and sold like real property. Okay, you're only dealing with the underlying paper, but not the physical property. Really the same benefits of real estate without tenant hassles or maintenance, but notes were a lesser known subset of real estate investing, so there weren't many people involved. I had to ask around quite a bit, but I eventually got referred to someone involved with notes. And I learned from this person who bought notes and worked with others who did. Okay, and the agreement was that if I could find note holders using my marketing abilities, he had people who would put up the money and buy them. And so that was the first little network I had in order to get my start. So what was the potential in the note market that I discovered? Well, so at the time, in the late 1990s, I discovered there was significant growth in the secondary mortgage market, which included the buying and selling of seller-financed contracts. Now, what were my first steps into note investing? Well, as it turned out, I was first getting into computers at the same time I was learning about the note market. So I was forced to learn computers being in outside sales, my employer having adopted them. So as it turned out, and I took to computers pretty well, and I ended up setting up my own website. So it wasn't very pretty at the time, but I put up a bunch of text articles. It's about the level of talent I had at that point, computer-wise, and information I put up aimed at note holders. And actually, I got a bunch of phone calls. It was pretty surprising to me. I said, wow, I really got some reach here. This was, the early days of the internet. And I was glad that I had the dedicated landline phone. Okay, one of the calls I got was from an attorney, and he said his client was holding a note. He may want to sell it. Can you maybe help? And I contacted the client. It turned out to be a gentleman who had sold a small factory that he financed the sale for. Now, he was still working from the office in the same building that he was selling, and then I went to see him in person. Not that I have to do that. We have to do that. Most of my note purchases don't require any live meetings. But at the time, since I was out working the sales territory anyway for my employer, and I happened to be able to work this in, I happened to be in Chicago right there, okay? We do business all over the country, really, but he happened to be in Chicago, so it's kind of interesting. So I went to see him. And it was pretty easy, just like calling on any other client. I was used to getting out there, talking to people. So I had a note submission checklist from my mentor. And even though I had no experience with notes, I just had been told to just ask the questions on the checklist and no need to overthink it. Okay, so I just took down the information that he provided along with copies of the documents. And then I got a quote from my funder. Okay, I worked in my finder's fee and I quoted the seller. And then the sale closed eventually. And as I recall, I made around $5,000 for just around 1 hour of work. And I used that to pay off my credit card debt I had at the time. And it felt really good to get that check in the mail. And then I was hooked from that point on. I did it again and again. So how did I scale up? Well, I built up a referral network that really started opening some doors. Building on the success I had with the referral from that first attorney, I found that other attorneys, accountants, and financial planners were really great referral sources for notes. And so I marketed to these professional people through the web and through direct mail, and speaking to them in terms of how I could help their note-holding clients. Okay? And I got more referrals that turn into sales. All you need really to make a decent living is at least just a dozen or so referral sources that each refer one client per year. So I'm oversimplifying this a bit because I have many more referral sources than that, but just assuming each referral means on a grand scale average, let's just say around $5,000, okay, for every brokered note, well, that can equate to a full-time living. Okay, now I also learned that a bit later on that purchased mailing lists of note holders are a real no-brainer, really, if the list is a quality one, that's the key, and is purchased from a reputable source. Now, direct mail is actually, as I found out, pretty close to being an exact science. You wouldn't think so maybe offhand, but it is kind of an exact science because when I got it going, I discovered for every 1,000 note holders contacted, anywhere between 8 and 25 will request a quote. Now, you want to have an ongoing campaign month to month. Generally speaking, a $500 investment can turn into $2,000 or more in referral fees, okay? As long as you have reputable funding sources, right, that put up all the money, they take on all the risk and walk you through the transaction. All right, so after you brokered, say, a couple dozen notes or so, you'll have some money built up, right, or capital by then, and you've gained some experience with the due diligence process, and you'll then be ready to invest in notes for your own account. Okay, so what are some common pitfalls in note investing? Okay, and how did I navigate them? Number one, you want to eliminate the time wasters. Okay, that is, you only want to begin a dialogue with people who are actually holding notes. All right, now you're sometimes going to be contacted by, for lack of a better word, I hear this term thrown around a little bit, joker brokers. Okay, that is someone who's not an actual note holder but is a broker themselves in reality, okay, and they don't have a funding source. They're just shopping it around. So don't waste your time with those types of people, okay. I found that a very good way to screen them is to ask a question up front. Are you collecting payments on a mortgage note now? Okay, ask that question. All right, this lets them know you're only interested in beginning a conversation if they are the actual note holder. And if the answer is no, say goodbye. All right, if the answer is yes, ask the two questions. What are the payments and how many are there? Now, this will give you a basis for moving to the full checklist if the answers are favorable. Okay, another common pitfall, and I see this a lot, is a failure to follow up. Okay, now you want to follow up on all your leads at least once a month, whether it's a direct mailing or a previous contact that said no at first. Okay, this is important because most of my closed transactions are with note holders who received my initial contact some time ago. So on any given month, I'm closing transactions with people who have become familiar with my name and my offer. It's true really with any kind of selling, right, if you think about it. So the longer you've been marketing, your reach becomes larger, and then the more oars you have in the water, the more transactions you do. So is this a good time to invest in or broker real estate notes? Well, my feeling is that this is one of the best times ever. So in 23, for example, a couple years back, we saw a 7.32 increase in seller carried notes, okay, compared with the year before, 22, to about 28 billion, okay, from 22.5 billion in 22. Higher interest rates have made seller financing more attractive, so more notes are being created. We expect this trend to continue in the short term, even if interest rates decline over the next 2 years. Well, what I find astounding is that while we saw a 19% drop in existing home sales nationally during a couple years back, right, there's been since then a 6.7-point increase in the number of sellers carrying first position privately held residential loans. And what this tells us is that there's a strong demand for alternative financing options such as seller financing. Now, potential returns are very attractive as compared with the stock market, which has been around 10% over the last 10 years. For notes purchased at standard discounts, we equal that at the very least, but for steeper discounts, which we tend to pursue more aggressively, so we can get it up to 12%, or in some cases, really a whole lot better, but that's for a later video. So be sure and subscribe so you don't miss that. And if you're looking to find out how to begin in the note business and using other people's money at first, which I recommend you consider, take a look at the link down below and we'll get you started. So in addition to subscribing to this channel so that you don't miss our upcoming informational videos on note investing and note brokering, you'll probably want to visit our website. If you're interested in the subject, noteinvestors.com. I have a link down below to the site, and I would highly recommend you subscribe to our weekly tips on note investing. It's really going to build up your knowledge quite a bit. So I'd recommend you consider just subscribing to that. Every week we send out an informative tip about how to better yourself in the note business and learning about all the different aspects and everything you need to know. We're only scratching the surface here, of course, in this video series. So there's always more to learn. So be sure and subscribe. I got a link down below. And by the way, if you want to get started in the business with using other people's money, not your own, if you're starting just from ground zero, well, we've got a link down below for you to check out and consider. All right. Have a good one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.